Now is the time. A time you'll look back on. A time you adopt as inspiration. You will recollect this time. This moment, right now. Motivate yourself towards success. Overcome. Take over. The time is now.
Hey, we're back. We're back. Is it Monday? No,
it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday.
It was meant to be Monday, but we're back.
Yeah. Well, it was. We had to cancel our show yesterday. The lads, the Toon review weren't available, but we'll set it up again. Don't you worry. We'll get the lads back in again. All busy, but hey, it leaves room for more shows. So yeah, we're back tonight.
We are, and look, it's a pleasure to have everyone join us on Loaded Mag NUFC. We can see you coming and joining in the chat as we go live, and look, we're looking forward to this one. That is for sure. But first and foremost, Daz, Chris, how are we after that fantastic win at the weekend?
I'm great. I was in the review show with you, Peter. Just still celebrating that. I'm looking forward to Miles's initiation song when he comes on, and I'm hoping Dom is still wearing that cup final suit, or was he just playing Football Manager and got to the final? Whatever he was doing, I'm looking forward to that to see what he's wearing. That's what I'm here for.
If those two disappear from the now,
it's going to happen sometime.
Definitely. But Chris, how are you?
Oh, good, mate. Yeah, I must admit, I've been off today. It's been lovely. Cheltenham day one for anyone who's into the horse racing. So I've been enjoying Cheltenham this afternoon, which has been great. But yeah, really looking forward to the game on Friday. And obviously looking forward to speaking to Miles and Dom as well to discuss all things Nottingham Forest and obviously, you know, the fallout of what happened against Wolves, which was a fantastic win. You boys did a fantastic review show, and yeah, I think everyone was in high spirits, weren't they? Because it looked, well, the performance backed up and the results. You know, that we've been used to under Eddie Howe. You know, we've had a few games where we've been a little bit unlucky. But yeah, we got our 3 points at the weekend, and they were much needed.
Absolutely right, they were much needed, and we're going to get down to business, talking all things Newcastle United and Wolves as well, because it is a Shields Gazette special. We are delighted to welcome back Dom Scurr, as always, and as well this time we've got Miles Starforth. So welcome both of them in to the channel.
Here's Dom, and here's the debut boy. Here's Miles. Welcome, lads.
How you doing, lads?
All right. Evening, lads.
Great to have you both on. Yeah, it does feel it's a Shields Gazette special. It feels like we're on your podcast because we listen to you guys and what you do. So it feels like it's a little bit roles reversed. But pleasure to have you both on. And of course, Daz is absolutely right. Miles, welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC in your debut. And I just want to get your opinions straight off the bat. Fantastic win against Wolves, as those boys have just said. I want to get sort of your opinions on the win, really. You know, how big was that win against Wolves at St James's Park? Dom, I'll start with you.
Oh yeah, it was massive. I think we spoke before the game. It had a sort of, you never want to say must win, but it was getting in that territory when you've gone 5 games without a win, when you've won 1 game at home in the league since the turn of the year. Goals hadn't been forthcoming. You'd lost 3 in a row, which for a side who had gone so long unbeaten, literally August to February unbeaten, to then lose 3 in a row, it's almost a culture shock. So to go into that game, Wolves, who were confident having beat Spurs the week before, doing Newcastle a favour, to go into that game and come out the way they did in the first half. Eddie Howe made 5 changes. I mean, we'll make a lot of the Newcastle squad. Is it quite strong enough for the Champions League push? But Eddie Howe's changed half of his outfield lineup from the Man City game, and I think that first half performance in particular really positive. I think they had 13 shots in the first half alone, which is good going, and deserved the goal through Alexander Isak. Obviously, I'm sure we'll get onto the Nick Pope stuff. They did ride the luck as well, but I think they deserved the lead at half time. Wolves came out second half, as you'd probably imagine they would, and did apply the pressure. And even though Newcastle gifted them the goal, I'd say they were knocking on that door. That goal was probably coming regardless. But then again, that strength of the squad, bringing your top 2 scorers on, and Miguel Almiron grabs his 11th of the season, which was great. It was that slip up with the goal, and few shaky moments with Nick Pope. A very, very good afternoon for Newcastle, and to do it back at St James's Park. Alexander Isak back in the team, back on the score sheet. A great afternoon all around.
Miles, I'll come to you. You know, Dom's talked about it being a great afternoon all round, as he's just said. But did it feel for you a performance of what we'd come to expect before the World Cup? Did it kind of feel like that in terms of the way in which you won the game for you on Sunday?
Well, certainly that first half, as Dom said, was terrific. And I think I agree with what Eddie Howe said. There wasn't much wrong between the boxes in some of the previous games, and a bit of perspective was needed after those 3 defeats as well. There's obviously the deflected goals. There was up front, Callum Wilson wasn't quite right, or wasn't quite performing as we expect him to perform. But I remember joining that first half, and after so many chances went begging, I think I turned to me to Liam, just sat a couple of seats to me, and said, "This has got 1-1 written all over it. We know the history of this fixture. There's been so many draws, so many 1-1s, and when a team just has so many chances and can't get that second goal because they were so dominant in that first half, you kind of fear the worst. You felt Wolves had a goal in them, and they did. But having the strength on that bench to bring Almiron off, because Almiron's not a player you ever see Eddie Howe leaving out of his start 11. That's quite a bold decision, really, given what he gives the team as much off the ball as anything. He's not a player you ever expect to be dropped or to be left out of the starting 11. I'm sure Eddie Howe he spoke about freshening up the team. He wasn't dropping anyone. But to have a player like him to bring off the bench, as it turned out, was kind of decisive. But you did fear the worst in terms of the break, in terms of their dominance, and not putting the ball in the net for at least a second time, because they could have had 3 or 4 really in that 45 minutes.
Yeah, Mark was absolutely right. Chris, I'll come to you. It could have been 3 or 4 easily at half time, and it was almost, I felt myself going, we need that second goal, we need that cushion, we were desperate for it. When that goal went in and they pulled it back to 1-1, were you like Dom and Miles, where you were thinking, this has got 1-1 written all over it?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I'll be honest, I didn't expect us to score the winner. So credit to Eddie Howe, for changing things up, and Miggy's full of energy regardless, isn't he, for the full 90 minutes? But full of energy, Miggy Almiron running at a defence in the last 15-20 minutes, it's always going to cause problems. And to be fair to him, he took his goal really well. And I think was it Joe Willock who set the chance up for him? Yeah, really, really good ball. It was a good bit of play, and to be honest, we fully deserved the 3 points. I think if we didn't get them, it would have been another sob story, another kind of us feeling sorry for ourselves. So the fact that we actually got the 3 points was pleasing, and I just hope now that that winning mentality is back. and that, you know, we can really kick on from it. We know we've got Forest on Friday. Again, a potential banana skin, especially with the likes of Shelby and Wood returning to play against the former club. So little bit nervous over it, not going to lie, because you never quite know what you're going to get with Forest. Sometimes they look brilliant, and then other times they do look like a team that's literally just been put together. So you never quite know what you're going to get with them. But no, yeah, I absolutely delighted with the 3 points, and like I say, I wasn't expecting it. I thought it was going to finish 1-1, as Miles said.
Yeah, you did have that feel about it until Willock produces that little moment of quality that breaks the lines, which was what we've missed. We've missed that pass. We've missed that breaking the lines type pass. And I'll be honest with you guys, I fully expected Bruno to be the one to do that, because he's shown it so often this season, that breaking the lines pass. We haven't had it, but it was really, really pleasing to see Willock do the business for that. And I'm so glad Geordie Toon for Life, welcome to the chat, has put a question up there, and it's around tactics. Because it's something that I had noticed too, and I'm really glad you've pointed that out and spotted it yourself. Because you know, we've talked about Eddie Howe's tactics. Chris, Miles, Dom, you've mentioned about the quality of the subs and the decisions to move certain players around. But I had noticed this too, and I'll ask it out to all of you. Do the panel agree that when Wolves equalised, the Wolves manager got his tactics wrong by changing to a back five and the two midfielders? He feels, Geordie Toon for Life feels it's wrong. But what do you guys think? You know, do you think did you notice it first and foremost, and do you think that was what potentially lost Wolves the game? I don't know who wants to go and throw themselves into that question.
Yeah, it was interesting because Wolves, I think, the momentum was building up, and then when you get gifted an equaliser, you expect the momentum to keep building. And basically, by changing things up, he made a couple of substitutions as well. It sort of stifled the momentum. The goal almost stopped Wolves pushing on in a way, even though it drew them level, because after that, Newcastle, the changes, Miguel Almiron, Callum Wilson, who they'd made just before Wolves scored, then started to get in the game a bit more, get a few more touches. And then it was only, I think, 9 minutes after Wolves equalised, Newcastle went back ahead. So, there's certainly a point there where Wolves seemed to take the foot off the gas after equalising, almost like, we're happy with a point here. St James's Park, very few teams come away here this season with anything. So we'll take a point. It's a good result on the road. And unfortunately for them, Newcastle were able to find that winner.
Anyone else have a different opinion or agree with Dom?
No, I'd agree with Dom, to be fair. No, you're right. They had the momentum till their goal, and they didn't afterwards, really. So I'm glad he did make that change, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it just opened up the wide areas for me, and we were able to really exploit that. It was very clear, and I think it might have been Carragher who on Sky was doing the commentary, had mentioned that the wing backs just weren't getting back. And that just allowed our attacking players to find those little pockets of space. So it was a really, really interesting turn within the game. But sticking with the game just briefly, there were certain players that really stood out for me. I think it's only right that we talk about Alexander Isak. I mean, Alexander Isak scored a fantastic goal at the weekend. There was obviously question marks about whether he was going to start. Eddie Howe was in his presser, said he's not quite ready to start 90 minutes. And it did throw up question marks here and there from the fan base. How good was he? Watching that live in the stadium, how good was he, Alexander Isak, in that, 60-odd minutes that he was on the pitch? Miles, I'll come back to you with that. Yeah,
well, he was very, very good, because I think up to now I've kind of wondered if he was going to be, as he adjusts to English football, to the pace and intensity, the physicality, whether he's going to be more of an influence kind of away from home, really, where there's pockets of space and the movement, the pace. But he showed really he can deliver at St James's Park. And it was you mentioned Eddie Howe's pre-match comments about not ready to play 90 minutes, and it was interesting in his press conference after the game. He felt the need to kind of clear that point up. He was asked by one of the other journalists, when will he be ready to play 90 minutes? And he says, well, I need to clear this up. He can play 90 minutes, but he needs to, but not for this team. Not just to play 90 minutes for this team. It's on another level, the intensity that they have to play with. So that was quite interesting. He can play 90 minutes, but just not at the level that Eddie Howe expects from his team. And it was a great look at him at the weekend. We've seen in bits and pieces what he can do, especially away from home as well. We've seen what he can do when there is spaces, and this just certainly a big step in the direction. He's had to be patient. Dom spoke to him after the game. Dom can tell you what he said, and he's got his chance, and he's taken his chance.
Definitely, Dom. You managed to speak to him. What were some of his comments?
Well, it was interesting because he actually touched on the Eddie Howe comment about his fitness, and he said, well, his message today was just empty the tank, play as long as he absolutely can until he can give absolutely no more to the team. And then you saw he holds his hands up and he comes off after about 65 minutes. He said, I can play 90 minutes, but the manager's asking me to do what he's asking, and that's just the way it is, and it's benefiting Newcastle. He also admitted he can get fitter. He's obviously been out for a long time. He said, I do need to work on my fitness. He said he needs to work on his heading as well, which I thought was interesting considering how good his header was to score the goal as well. But yeah, I thought he was, particularly in the first half, I think I said he was electric. I thought playing off the shoulder, his pace, his energy, that way moment in the first half where he ran, I think he intercepted the ball or something, then he tackled the Wolves player, and just out of nothing he's created a Newcastle attack, put Wolves on the back foot. That sort of energy is exactly what you want from a forward player in Eddie Howe's side, and to get the goal as well was a real bonus. So yeah, really promising signs for him. Probably his best performance certainly since his debut at Liverpool, because he's been getting the goals, but this was his first performance since his debut where you've been like, yeah, this is a proper player Newcastle have here.
Definitely. It certainly justified the decision. But the question mark's always going to be now, and I come to you for this one, Daz, the question mark's going to be, is he going to stay there? We know that Eddie Howe likes to chop and change his teams. We saw it with Lascelles, arguably man of the match at the Etihad. Then comes back out, Shaw comes back in. Is this, in your opinion, Daz, a one-time deal? And that he comes in for now to do a job. He's done a job against Wolves, but then he comes back out again. Or do you think he is there to stay now? Is this his prolonged period in the team?
Yeah, I kind of said quite and let the rest of the lads have their say on the game, because we did about an hour and a half on at the weekend playing Sunday night. But yeah, he's definitely staying in the team. Wilson has a job in his hands to get back in. No, I wouldn't put it past him to get back in again, and a little bit of a break from might be no harm anyway. But yeah, no, Isak has the spot now, and he is not giving it up. And it's that bodes well for going into next season, because as you've said many times, he's going to be our number one target man, unless we buy big in the summer as well to complement him. But yeah, he's definitely not giving that up. I'm going to move to another question, because the quality of the questions in the chat is actually really, really good tonight. On our review show, we had one question, I think, but we've got loads tonight. And the ever youthful David Cook, who was chatting to on Twitter during the week, this is a topic we haven't got to, and it's a controversial topic. It's kind of splits the fan base 50-50, but what's the panel's opinion on Pope's penalty incident? He says, I thought it was a coming together and the Wolves player was looking for it. I know my own comment on it when the review show, if I was running VAR, or if VAR was in operation for that decision, I would have given the penalty. It looked bad. But what are your thoughts? Miles, we go to you first.
I think I'm similar to you, to be honest. My first instinct was a penalty. yeah, seeing the replays, I don't think could have too many complaints if the penalty had been given. To be honest, just relieved it wasn't like the rest of us. There was a couple of nervy moments in that game.
Sure were, and yeah, a few fumbles from Popey at the time in that game. But Dom, your thoughts?
I agree. I thought at the time it was a penalty in real time. I thought once I saw the replay, I thought it was a penalty. I think probably doesn't help himself with the fact he's made a mistake with a heavy touch as well. It makes him look probably more guilty. But then there was an angle sort of from behind the goal, which makes it look like Jimenez is sort of trying to sell the referee slightly. And I think that's made it so it's almost not a clear and obvious error. So VAR hasn't intervened. I think it's one of them that had the referee given a penalty, VAR probably wouldn't have intervened, or he might have had a look at it and would have given the penalty anyway. But it's a quite subjective one, I think. I think Jimenez probably has made probably an error himself in the fact that he's tried to almost jump into Pope. I think if he just kept going and fell naturally, it probably would have been a penalty as well, and it may have gone to VAR had the referee not done anything. But yeah, I thought it was a penalty, and I wouldn't have had any complaints had it been given. But I think Newcastle got away with one, but obviously helped by the fact Raul Jimenez sort of tried to sell the referee slightly as well.
Yeah, that's more than fair. I think you'd agree with that, wouldn't you, Chris, with regards to the Pope decision?
Yeah, do you know what? As Miles said, when I first seen it, I thought penalty. When I watched it back, I still kind of thought it was a penalty. And the best way to describe it for me, best way to describe it to myself, or to kind of come to the decision myself, would be, if that was against us, I'd have been screaming all day for that. And if we didn't get it, I'd have been fuming. I can see what people are saying, about him leaning into Pope, because he does. But we got away with one majorly there, because I think if the referee, as Dom's just said, if the referee had made the decision and given the penalty, they wouldn't have overruled that, I don't think. I think they'd have just said, no clear and obvious error. Because the referee sat on the fence and done a 007 stato, that's how we've managed to get away with it, because they've looked at it and gone, okay, well, it's not a clear and obvious error. If the referee doesn't think it's a pen, then we're happy to kind of go with what the referee thinks. But we're lucky that they didn't tell him to go to the screen, because we all know as soon as the referee gets sent to the screen, 99 times out of 100, the decision gets reversed.
Definitely. All good points all round. Very much agree with those assessments. Now, before we look ahead to what's coming up and look to that, Miles, you put a piece together talking about Anthony Gordon. That was the surprise missing in the squad, potential injury that's facing several weeks out. Can you just give us a little bit more on that, potentially, on what type of injury it is? Was it a surprise to you guys to hear that before the game?
Well, it was one of those ones. Eddie Howe doesn't like talking about injuries, as you probably all gathered. Really, he doesn't like giving too much away, which is fine. We all understand that. So with the poker face on Friday, any issues, any new injury problems, and he was kind of no, nothing that I'm aware of, or just a couple of little things. But one or two of us had heard there was an injury we didn't know about, but we weren't quite sure who it was or the severity. Lo and behold, before the game, I went up. Dom and myself were talking about it. Really, we were watching the players come in, working out who this player that we thought was missing was going to be. I'd heard whispers about Gordon, and one or two people had heard other things as well. And so it was. It turned out to be Gordon, and he's missing. And obviously, Eddie Howe did his quick flash interview before the game and mentioned this issue with his ankle, and he spoke a bit more about it. I asked him about it after the game, and he said it was one of those ones where it was a kick, or from a tackle, didn't feel too much after the game, but it's obviously really swollen up, and now he's looking at a few weeks. But no more details than that really. But by the sound of it, he's obviously going to miss the Forest game, and most likely going to miss the Man United game as well. So even after that 2-week break, so which is a blow really. He's just got into the starting 11, just trying to find his feet, get into his stride. We've seen a few flashes from him so far. We've seen bits of his pace and the energy he can bring to the team. So that is a blow. We're obviously talking of weeks rather than months, but by more than likely the way Eddie Howe was talking after the game, he'll miss the Manchester United game as well, which certainly is a blow.
Definitely, and hopefully he'll be back soon. But as we've seen. And I won't touch on it too much right now because I want to look forward to what's coming up. But as we've seen, players have come in and taken their chances, and I think we'd all agree that Murphy put in a good performance against Wolves, and you could argue, and we'll maybe talk about this later on, whether he deserves his starting berth on Friday night. But looking ahead, we're talking about the next game. Chris has mentioned it already. Forest away. On Friday, another massive game with potential 3 points on the board. And Chris mentioned actually, the worry about the potential ex-players coming back to haunt us. There were some question marks actually about certainly Chris Wood. Am I right in thinking that he can't play because he's still a lone player? That the obligation may have been, it's been triggered as we understand it, but that won't be converted to a permanent transfer until the summer. So we don't need to worry about. That's one player we don't need to worry about, but they've got one or two others, obviously. But definitely. But I mean, what are your thoughts, both Miles and Dom, going into that Forest game? Is confidence high from your opinions of Newcastle potentially getting the 3 points there? And sealing off this international break with some real positivity, having won at St James's Park. What are your general thoughts about going into this game and Newcastle setting up away from home this time?
As we've seen with Eddie Howe up to now, they're going to go there to win. They have that approach to every game. They'll have a plan to win the game. It's a winnable game. I think this 2-game sequence, this and the Wolves game, was so important after that tough run of defeats, tough run of opponents, really, and being respectful to Wolves and Forest. These are again two tough games, tough teams. But it's so important, I think, to go into this international break on a positive result, and they'll be going there to win.
Dom, from your perspective, and I've just touched on this earlier, going into that game against Forest away Friday night, the early kickoff of the weekend, is there anything that you would particularly change about Newcastle's team in terms of the starting berth, or would you keep it exactly how it was in the way in which we started against Wolves?
I'd probably keep it the same. Obviously, it is a shorter gap between games than usual, but confidence is high. Obviously, you've got Alexander Isak, Alan St-Maximin, Joe Willock coming into the side, making a difference. And we'll mention Jacob Murphy as well. It would be harsh to drop him, even though Miguel Almiron comes off the bench and scores. That's probably the one change where I'd maybe consider making on that right side. But other than that, can't really complain with how Newcastle set up and how they performed on Sunday. And I think every player in that starting 11 probably deserves to keep the place in the side because, they needed that win, and I think we'll all feel a lot better now going into Forest on the back of that win, because had it been a 6th game without a win, headed into an international break as well, becomes quite a lot of pressure surrounding it. But it's a big game regardless, as they all are. But this is a one where I think we're heading into it with a bit more confidence of the weekend.
think so.
Sounds back.
Oh yeah, he's back. Sorry, I thought you got stuck there, and I wasn't sure whether it finished off your last point. We just missed the last point that you made, Dom. But in general, we got the gist. I think with regards to the Forest game. One thing that came out of that, that's come out of the weekend's games, particularly from Nottingham Forest, is that Brennan Johnson is potentially injured and is likely to miss the game. So with Wood and Brennan Johnson missing, it's looking like potentially Emmanuel Dennis starting up front. They're not got free scoring as a team. So, hearing that news, Chris, you kind of, your eyebrows like perked up a little bit. Is that changed your mindset going into the game on Friday, knowing that two of their main strikers are potentially out the game?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's changed my mindset because I still feel confident going into the game, but it certainly helps because I don't like coming up against former players, and Brennan Johnson at the moment, you could argue, is in top form. He's probably Forest's most dangerous player going forward at the minute. I must admit, the likes of Andre Ayew don't really scare me that much, but Brennan Johnson looks like he's got a little bit about him. So the fact that he's potentially out is a big plus. So yeah, no, but I'm feeling more positive now, and as I say, the more we can disrupt that Forest 11 and the more that they've got to make changes to their team, given the fact that their squad's so big, that can only help. And really, that just emphasises to me that we should stick with the same 11, that we played against Wolves, because I think it would be harsh to drop any of those 11 players, albeit Miggy came on and, got us the winner. I think it would be majorly harsh on Jacob Murphy to drop him after such a good performance.
I would agree. It certainly perked me up. It certainly made me feel confident about the game. That is for sure.
Just a comment on that, Pete, and just on the, because when I was reading, I pay close attention to the Newcastle World and the Chiefs Gazette articles from the lads, but Jordan had one out today with he had about 10 players that are potentially missing for Forest, including 2 keepers. One keeper was a doubt, and there's a question here as well from Bobby, and they asked the question: does Jesse Lingard get any playing time these days? So is he playing? I haven't been watching that closely. Forest.
I don't think he does.
I think he started against Tottenham.
Oh, did he?
I think he started against Tottenham at the weekend, but that, if I'm right in thinking, and I don't watch Forest too closely, but from what I'd seen, I think that's the first time he'd started in a while. So it could well be, if Wood and Brennan Johnson are not available, which it's likely that they're both not available, then it's looking like he may well be drafted into the team. Either him or Emmanuel Dennis, maybe both of them, as a potential forward line. Now, Gaz, are you worried about Lingard coming into the team? I'm
not worried about anything that Forest has to offer. Apart from who Chris touched on, Brendan Johnson. Yeah, he's good, and he's someone that we have looked at in the past. But apart from him, no, not worried. I think we should be going for 3. I know we're away from home, but we should be going for it, and we should get our 3 points against Forest. All going well.
Okay, I missed the majority of that because my internet went off slightly. But look, it's fantastic. 170 in the chat, live watching us. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to listen to the show. If you haven't already, click that like button, that thumbs up button. Only takes a second, just like clockwork. It pops up on the screen. Get your comments in. In fact, we'll come to some questions for Miles and Dom in just a second. But if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. We're on the way to 6K. Thank you all for your fantastic support with the channel so far. What questions have we got? I know there's some fantastic.
We've taken some already, and we've got 21 left. We're only halfway through. Right, let's do rapid fire, lads. Is there any? Is Isak in the Swedish squad? If so, can we request a limited playing time for him? Anyone know?
Oh, I don't
know about the playing time, but the squad hasn't been announced yet. He was asked about it on Sunday, and he said, I think what did he say exactly? He said, yeah, like something along the lines of he expects to be in the side. Oh, I guess so. I guess I'll be in the side, but nothing announced, nothing official yet. Miles is muted.
Miles, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. No, in these instances, there's always a dialogue between the club and the country. So you just have to hope the relationships, good between and given that he suffered that injury with Sweden early in the season, I'm sure they'd listen to any concerns or issues in terms of his playing time. Well, certainly, let's hope so.
It would be classic Newcastle that he goes back on international duty and breaks down again. We've seen it so many times. I mean, the one that sticks in my mind, Tim Krul, the amount of times he went on international duty for Holland and managed to finally get a start and break down in those games, and it massively affected us.
Well, he suffered his quite a bad knee injury, didn't he?
Yeah. Did his ACL. It's crazy. I personally, I don't want to see him on international duty. I'll be honest. I don't know what you guys think. I was buzzing when Bruno wasn't in the Brazil squad because it means that he stays with us, and we can look after him and monitor him. He'll go to Abu Dhabi on the warm weather training camp, and we can look after him, wrap him up in cotton wool, ready for the back end of the season. But no, good question. Good question, that one. Any others, Daz?
Yeah, there's plenty more. I'll link it to the topic you just brought up. So, one from Rich Jobling here. Question: is Bruno okay? He didn't seem himself the other night. Match cam, he looked pissed off. Could see him frustrated with the other players. Even should we be worried? Pressure's on now to get the top four. What's your thoughts on Bruno? And are you seeing the frustration that's coming across on the TV?
I'm not sure whether he's frustrated with his teammates or whatever. I think he's just a player who wants the best out of himself. And of course, he's had that ankle issue, like a minor issue. Eddie Howe has spoken about it a little bit. Said he's okay. He's been able to train okay. Whether that's affecting him a little bit, and he's just a bit of frustration on his own part. But I don't think there's any issues there.
Cool. Let's move to the next one. And yes, Lisa Mole has been out with the binoculars again. Nice one, Lisa. She's noticed that Keith Downey was filming with Sky Sports at the training ground this morning. Not noticed that happening before. Have other journos like Dom and Miles been invited to do this?
No, but we don't get, the Shields Gazette doesn't put tens of millions of pounds into the club, to be honest. So they're Sky going to have that extra access. I'll be honest, I haven't seen the footage. I think Dom, you picked up on it, didn't you, earlier today?
Yeah. It was on Sky, just a sort of limited training session, wasn't it? Where like Miguel Almiron and players like that, the players who didn't start on Sunday, just a light training session by the looks of it. But
I think one thing, Sky have got some very good access this season, and it's maybe no coincidence that Amazon are filming this documentary as well at the moment. So maybe they're getting a bit better access against that backdrop.
Yeah, could be all linked. Lovely. This is a good question here, and you mightn't know too much about it, lads, but there's a lot of talk around the sponsorship, right? The question comes in from PDK. What's the latest on our shirt sponsorship, and how soon will it be announced? Now, there's a lot of talk. There was earlier in the week, it was about Reda Air being set up and getting off the ground, so to speak. And then there's Saudi Air as well, being talked about as potential future Newcastle front of shirt sponsors. And any word on the street?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't know the identity of the sponsor as yet. I've spoken to someone, actually one or two people, about this. Some months ago, I was told it was going to be a very, very big deal in the pipeline, whether that's Saudi or Riyadh Air, whoever, I don't know. It's going to be a step change in terms of the revenue coming into the club. I do know that. Now that it's obviously positive news, the Fun 88 deal's coming to an end. They're going to have a new front shirt sponsor. As to when it will be announced, I don't think it will be announced for some time yet.
Okay. Last question for you, Miles, and before we can.
I can probably do another 5 minutes, to be honest. I'm just waiting for my son. I'm just waiting for my son to come back from his football training, because it was funny. Last week I dropped him off, and normally I just get out of the car and watch him. This 1 week I think, I'll drop him off. I'm just going to nip across the road to Aldi to get a few bits and then go back and watch the rest of the session. I got back and Jamal Lascelles had been there. He'd been and gone, and they'd all had the picture taken with him. He'd been to the club to where he trains to see someone. So that was nice for them. But I'd missed all the excitement by the time I got there. I'd been in Aldi across the road. So there you go. Anyway,
he didn't pick up a yellow card when he was there, did he?
No, he was looking pretty fresh from the pictures, given that he'd faced Haaland and Co a couple of days earlier, so he was looking good.
Good. Yeah, no, he did, and he was my man of the match in that game.
Really
City. But this another one from Lisa, and this might take you a while to answer. Stolen from Twitter. Which ex-failed Newcastle player would you bring back, and who you think would thrive under Eddie Howe?
Ooh, great question.
That is a great question. I think we could do a whole show on that.
Well, yeah.
I might have to give that a bit of thought. Dom, what do you think?
I've seen this on Twitter, and I know a lot of people were saying Mikel Moreno. I know he didn't fail as such. He was a great player for Newcastle over a very short amount of time. He's one of them who's maybe gone too soon, but is still of an age where if you brought him back now in that midfield alongside Bruno would be sensational. Really knows Isak well from Real Sociedad as well. So that's one that sticks out. That's one I've seen, and I certainly agree with. It's probably a couple other players. Ivan Toney, big one, in terms of he did effectively fail as a Newcastle player. He just never really got a chance. And I think he was him in this side now is very good.
Yeah, I just think Toney at the time was still years away from being the finished product. He needed to go away and play his football. Could have the club loaned him for another 2 or 3 seasons, maybe. Was that right? Was that the right thing to do for him? That was a frustrating one to see him now. Terrific player, but there you go.
I to be fair, Tony said in an interview he wasn't ready to play for Newcastle.
That was my view when he left, but then 2 or 3 years of playing week in, week out, he was a different proposition. As we've all seen. But and you look at him now, incredible.
Would you sign him now?
I would have done, yeah.
Boys, Chris, Daz, would you sign him in summer? Without the potential ban Langen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then yeah. Why not? Yeah, he's quality, but that's the baggage. No, I'd stay clear.
I was going to say, he might be able to help me out with me fussy bets, so he wouldn't be such a bad person to bring. No, but no, in all seriousness, he'd be fantastic. Ivan Toney, I think he'd be a really good addition to the squad. To answer the question below, I thought you were going to say, we know you're going to say, but regardless of age, so forgetting age, it would be Athan Ben Arfa.
I knew you were going to say.
I knew it as well. And not Andy Carroll, not Andy Carroll.
Andy Carroll would be great.
Do you think Hatton would have put the work in that Howe demanded?
Well, it's a great. Yeah, to be fair, Miles, that's a great point. I don't know whether he would have persisted and had patience with him. I'm not sure because he was that good. But no, it's a great point. And yeah, if he didn't toe the line, then perhaps he wouldn't have lasted much longer under Eddie Howe.
He'd have lasted. He was that good. But I've gone for another. I've gone for a left winger. I've gone for Hugo Viana.
You beat me to it.
I'm sorry. When he came in, he was the European's youngest player of the year. He was the star, and it was only because that season Laurent Robert was that good that he just couldn't keep him. He couldn't get into the team. But for me, he was actually a centre midfielder, but we wanted to play him out on the left. If we'd have played in centre midfield, I think he would have and had more time in the team. I think he would have really performed. But he would perform in this team. In that number 8 role, he would perform.
And I met him many years later. I was covering the club at the time when he was at the club, but He was playing in a tournament in Portugal, and he's still got a great deal of affection for this club. Even if it didn't work out, he's got so much time for this club, which was nice to hear speaking to him.
Brilliant stuff.
I'll go for someone different, and no one will ever pick. So I'm gonna pick Marcelino, and there's a reason why. Because he would be my worst ever player ever for Newcastle. But I saw a sense in sitting down with a few lemonades with the Geordie dentist Mitch in my last trip to Newcastle, and he explained to me the reasons why it didn't work out for him. And if he had the support networks around him that are there now, he would have been far better player, and he would have played a few games, and hopefully he wouldn't have had that injury with that he nearly lost his finger. But yeah, so that's just left of field kind of an answer for that one, because Pete Robb go fan on it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, do you want to go back to where we are? We can return to questions again. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, well, we've got. I tell you what, we're going left field here. We're going in a different direction, and it's something that it's a piece that Dom you put out with regards to someone that I think is an interesting topic of conversation at the moment, and it's this man, Garang Kowal. You put the piece out that he's been handed a boost and he's been called up to the Australian squad for later this month. However, he's only started once since joining Hearts on loan in January. Now, I just want to get your thoughts on Garang Kowal. Is this loan move going the way that we anticipated? Because a lot of fans are questioning this loan move because he hasn't made as many starts as what people anticipated. But I just want to get your thoughts on obviously the piece that you wrote about him going in the Australian squad. Will it be a good thing for him and his overall move to Hearts so far?
Yeah, I think it'll be a boost for him. Just getting him out of the sort of current environment he's in, getting him back with the Australia squad. He's got a few of his Hearts teammates as well in that Australia squad, and it'll give him a boost he needs. About his game time, his start. What I will say is before he joined Newcastle at Central Coast Mariners, he wasn't a regular starter there. He was often an impact sub, and he has been used in a similar way at Hearts. It's just he hasn't got any goals, any assists so far. He has only made one start, and he's still only 18. So the fact he's just getting games, getting used to it, and getting on the pitch, it isn't necessarily a bad thing. The Australia manager, the headline in the link there, he actually referred to it as a negative spell for him, or negative period. So hopefully this time away with Australia, the 2 games of play against Ecuador, I think it is, in Australia, will just sort of reconnect him, give him a boost, and he can come back and end the season well. But I wouldn't be overly concerned because he's not injured. I think he's missed 1 game through illness. He's been on the bench a couple of times in the cup, but he's getting on the pitch every week, and that has to be a positive for an 18-year-old playing. Okay, not as high a level as the Premier League or even the Championship, you could argue, but he's playing senior football every week, getting on 20-25 minutes every week, which will only bode well for him.
No?
Yeah, I think this could be the making of him, really. And as Dom said, we forget how young he is, how inexperienced he is, and he wasn't starting games in Australia. This is a big step to the Scottish Premiership in terms of physicality, intensity, and everything else that comes from moving to the other side of the world. So I think it's a bit too early to judge this loan spell. We'd obviously all watched the World Cup, seen him come on, seen some moments from him on that stage, and maybe expected him to be starting games, scoring goals. But it's still quite kind of early days, and this is showing him what's needed to play in British football, and that's what was quite revealing. Eddie Howe said we want him alone. There's been talk about going to Portugal for his loan. But he made it clear before it was confirmed he was going to Hearts. He wants him to experience British football, and he's seen it firsthand. Whether he's on the pitch or not, he's getting an idea of what it's going to take for him to succeed in this country.
Yeah, I've just put a comment on there, Daz, from Leon S, and it kind of links with the loans at the moment. And Leon's put talking of loans, Ishola and the players' loan department earning their money. We haven't had a lot of loan successes. Would you guys agree with that? Would you agree that the loan department is an issue? And obviously we had Elliot Anderson at Bristol Rovers that was very, very successful. He did very, very well there. But and you might be able to correct me, I'm struggling to see beyond that any successes, major successes after that period. Would you say it's been a success, or do you think it needs a continued revamp?
Well, Shola actually spoke about the kind of his job a little at this event I went to in Riyadh in December. And of course, he highlighted Elliot Anderson because that is the one big success. And his position was created a few years ago to make sure players do get max amount of game time. And I think we can all point to a few loans which haven't gone well. Look at Matty Longstaff was one just off the top of my head at Aberdeen. There's been a few, but again, I'm not. I'll be reluctant to point the finger at him. Sometimes it's the players, and I think. Apart from the players we've mentioned, you could look at the quality of the players we're loaning out, the levels. But certainly, I'd be expecting a bit more from between now and the end of the season.
Yeah. No, I would agree, definitely. And yeah, Keaty's just tweeted, not tweeted, but put a comment on about Dujan Richards,
Whispers,
who was on trial, and I think it's been confirmed by his management team that Newcastle did offer him a contract, but he's just decided to go to Chelsea, which it is what it is. But I suppose we could talk about the loan market all day and the loan situation with Newcastle. It will get better, there's no doubt about it, but it's just going to take a little bit of time. Daz,
on the loans, I think the important thing is that the club has, even before the takeover, had taken the step of having a loan coordinator, and now hopefully that'll be a beefed up department. A bit, because it is a job. These players need to be watched, they need to be spoken to, they need to be encouraged, they need to be guided, and the people are hopefully in place now to do that going forward, which wasn't always the case.
And you're right, it definitely needs more than one person to manage that situation. Any questions? Well, I know there are questions.
Last time there was 2022, we got through loads, and now there's 26. So yeah, and remember there was only one on Sunday night, according to Martin. Right, question, Miles and Dom, have you noticed a gradual change in the relationship between the media, press, and the club since the takeover? Did the change happen overnight, or is it no different than it was before? Brilliant question.
I think some things did change overnight. You look at Craig Hope was unbanned overnight. That was an immediate change. Other things are going to take time. The big thing is I had no relationship with Mike Ashley. No one else did. I knew people in his circle. There was people we could go to, but again, I'd never sat in a room with him. I'd never spoken to him. All of us have spent some time with the kind of hierarchy of the club now, which is a positive. It gives us a better understanding, and we can give everyone else a better understanding through that kind of contact. Hopefully that'll continue to improve. One thing, the conversations I've had with Amanda Staveley, she's all for openness. There's obviously some things they can't be open about. You're talking about the commercial deals, the sponsors, and there's things which are going to have to. We'll have to wait to find out, but openness was a big byword of hers, and by and large things have improved over the I guess best part of a year and a half now, and obviously Dom deals more with the players than me. We've had a good group of players for some time now, really. Even during Steve Bruce's time, I always stressed that it was a good group of players. It has been since Rafa was here. And hopefully the relationships which we've all got will continue to improve.
Before, there's someone in the chat that wants to say hello, Miles, and this is probably where people start to get worried. Who is it? But Alan Little, he says, say hi to Miles. I was his postie in South Gosford, and he kindly brought me match programs from Euro 2004.
Oh, wow.
Hope you're well, Miles.
That's a blast in the past. Hi, I hope you're well.
we get everyone.
That really is a blast in the past. Wow.
Brilliant stuff.
Oh, good to hear from you.
That's a great story. You know what? On Loaded Mag NFC, the amount of connections we have with guests and fans that come on that know people that come onto the show for various different reasons, it's amazing. So Alan Little, great to.
Drop me a message privately, Alan. It'd be good to hear from you.
And if it was the lead up to the cup final, he'd be hitting you up for tickets as well. Miles, don't you worry.
I couldn't get my own family tickets, to be fair. I wasn't much use to them.
Oh, where are we going next? Still so many questions.
I'm sorry, I've been storing more. Some Frizz boys though to continue on with after.
There's loads. Well, yeah, there was one here, and it struck a nerve because of the topic we talked about at the end of our review show. And let's go to Dom's opinion first on this one. And it comes from Mark Todd. Goldbridge and other YouTubers are saying, well, I'm probably in that, other YouTubers are saying that the Conference League would be a disaster for Newcastle to be competing in. Thoughts?
I don't think it would be. It's European football at the end of the day, isn't it? So I think the squad needs to be considerably strengthened for European football, regardless of whether it's Europa League, Conference League, Champions League, whatever. Needs to be considerably better. What I would say about the Conference League, okay, it might not be as prestigious as the other two, but if Newcastle win it, I'd 100% back them to go all the way and win it. I think they'd stand a really good chance, as most Premier League sides who qualify for that competition would. They'd be one of the favourites. So I don't see how that would be a disaster. Obviously, European football is going to hinder Newcastle somewhat in terms of the squad and managing that with the Premier League and potential domestic cup competitions as well. But that's going to be the case. If you want to be in Europe, you have to be prepared for it. And I think the Conference League would be it would be slightly underwhelming to get it, having been in and around the Champions League places all season so far. But it's European football. There'll be some interesting European away days, I'm sure. And I think Newcastle would stand a decent chance of winning it if they win it.
Yeah, I think what I would say, I think we all want European football. I would love the Conference League. We all remember the European trips of a decade or so ago, and even beyond that. I was fortunate enough to go away and watch Champions League games, and we all think back to the last time Bruges and so on. Fantastic. If it's the conference, then great. As Dom says, I think this club with a strengthened squad can attack it. Though the caveat to that, I think there is some concern higher up at the club about what this would mean for the Premier League form, and there's no question it would impact Premier League form, and we can't gloss around that. There is that concern there about what it would mean, and it's guess how do you minimise that impact on your domestic form, those games, the travelling and everything else. But I think we all want it, and hopefully we'll be in Europe in some form or another.
And of course, you were the wrong people to ask this question, because you're going to be going every second week. You'll be off on a little trip probably. Who would get to go if that happens?
Miles goes to Saudi Arabia, so I wouldn't hold up too much. But at the moment, you never know.
Every second trip. There we go.
What I was going to add to that, and sorry for adding a question to that, is that you made a really good point, Dom, is that the squad would need to be massively revamped. How many players do you think would need to be revamped in terms of players coming in the summer in order to supplement a squad that was ready for European football, in your opinion?
How many players would need to sign?
Yeah, how many do you think we'd need to bring in order to? Because we know players are going to leave, the likes of potentially Richie, Dummett, and one or two others that we know and come to expect. But how many, in your opinion, do you think we'd need to bring in to have a squad strong enough to manage a potential, Thursday, Sunday, or even a Champions League Tuesday, Saturday?
Yeah, I think you're looking at least 5 sort of Premier League quality, Premier League ready players, and then probably another few more of the sort of caliber of like your Havertz and Ashby's, players who can fill a gap, who can start games in Europe, for example, or the cup competitions, and come in when needed. So you're probably looking 6, 7 in total. But I'd say you need probably 5 quality additions in the summer to get it really ready for a European sort of battling on both fronts, because you look Newcastle squad now, although I've praised it earlier in the show, once you get past the sort of initial sort of 11 to 15 players, the squad becomes very weak very quickly, in my opinion. So if you're getting rid of the players you've mentioned and maybe a couple more as well, and then bringing in, improving on every single one of them, then that's going to be what's needed, I think. And you're looking at players like, sounds harsh, but players like your Matt Targett, maybe even Dan Burn to a degree, Dan Burn's been excellent this season, very important player, but he can't be a starting left back for Newcastle in the Champions League for me. He should be, in a year, 2 years time, he should be a squad player, an important squad player, and that's sort of the level. We just need to players need to maybe step down to the level below, if you like. So you'll have your Sean Longstaff's important player this season, good squad player next season. That's sort of the level we want to be looking at if Newcastle are to be competing on all fronts, really, if you like, in European football and in the Premier League.
I would agree. I want to get the boys' other question. I want to get the boys' opinions on this as well. But I don't know how long we've got with you, Dom, because I know we're on the hour. Have you got? Do you need to shoot?
1 more, 2 more?
Yeah, go for it.
1 more.
We'll come back to that question for you boys in a second.
Yeah.
Get more questions for Dom.
We picked the best ones there. One second. Yeah, okay, this one I wanted to bring. It comes from Michael Palmer again, from Miles to Dom. Is the training ground upgrade completed yet?
Certainly a lot of the work's done. The building work is done. Annoyingly, Miles would have probably been better tasked than me because he was physically at the training ground just a few days ago. But to my knowledge, the actual building work's done. There's just a few internal things still need sorting as well. But the sort of restaurant side of things, the stuff that will impact the players, the change rooms and stuff like that, has been completed. There's just a few more things left to do, as far as I'm aware, anyway.
Cool. Let's go with this from John Elliott. With such a quite, I suppose, into the January window anyway, do you think the club even considered the loan market, especially with Shelby going on deadline day and everything like that?
Well, they absolutely considered the loan market because they made loan inquiries, but obviously you would have said at the start of the window a couple of loans would have been ideal, but it's how willing clubs are to loan players to you, especially when you're sitting, I think at the time, 3rd in the league or 4th in the league, or a team sitting 10th hoping to be where you are, i.e. Chelsea, gonna loan players who are in and around their first team to you and strengthen your squad. It's just not realistic, to be honest. They did, because they looked at Sander Berge from Sheffield United as well, made a loan inquiry for him. Obviously that didn't happen. Whether that gets revisited in terms of a permanent deal, I don't know, in the summer. But loans were certainly looked at. It's just can be hard to do, especially when you're wanting to strengthen your squad and when you're getting rid of players so late in the day as they did with the likes of Shelby. But I think a lone striker would have been ideal, but then it's guaranteeing game time as well. And when the team are doing well, how do you sell a player loan move if they're going to be on the bench? So it just nothing could get done really. It's not for the want of trying though.
Last question for you, Dom, and it's because we won one match. We're going into the Forest game hoping and praying that we win that one. But Tom asked the question: where do you think we'll finish now?
I think they'll finish sixth. I think I'd like to think they'll finish higher. I'd like to think they'll get Champions League. They're certainly in the Champions League hunt, if you like, which anyone would have taken. And European football is sort of the ideal aim for this season, and I think they'll get that. And I think sixth is realistic. I think Liverpool, although they had obviously the setback at the weekend, I think they've probably shown enough to potentially catch Newcastle, and and Spurs hot and cold as well. But I just think maybe that's my negative Newcastle fan cap on. But I think sixth would mark a really good season for Newcastle, even though we've been in and around higher up the league pretty much since September. But I think sixth place for me.
Nothing wrong with that, because anything else better than that, it's an absolute bonus, and we'll be loving life with a fifth, fourth, or even third position. I think I might have said it to you, Chris, although you probably not read the message yet. I said I'm not ruling out this finishing above Man United. They've got 4 games without Casemiro. They come to St James's Park. As good as their form has been, they can equally be as poor in the run up to the back end of the season. And we know they're not the same team. Not saying that we are going to finish ahead of them, but I think if we go to Forest and win, and then they come to St James's Park and we win, it throws a spanner in the works for them. And actually, we then go and win our game in hand at West Ham. We are back in the mix. We're within points of them. And then the conversation is very, very different to what it is now. Obviously, we've got to go and do the business, of course. But if we do, we've got some serious questions out there.
I think based on that league table, if we did that, Pete, if we beat Forest and then beat Man United and then beat West Ham in our game in hand, we'd be level on points.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So it's not all doom and gloom. I think we're right in the mix. I think we're hopefully a win at Forest on Friday will turn this into the right type of form at the right time of the season, and always to play for. But look, we threw a load of questions at you, Dom. We're on an hour and 8 minutes, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come in and joining us. And of course, your colleague Miles was making his debut. He had to jump because that's picking his boy up from training. But obviously, massive thanks to Miles making his debut on Loaded Mag NUFC. Really appreciate his thoughts, and you guys together. The Shields Gazette special has been a very, very good one, and you guys are always brilliant in your thoughts and opinions. And if anybody in the chat hasn't yet, is not yet following the Shields Gazette and following Dom and Miles in all things Newcastle United related, get onto Twitter, give them a follow, give the Shields Gazette a follow. Their articles are absolutely spot on and
100%.
Really, really good reads. And we've thrown up a couple tonight as talking points because they are very, very good at what they do. So again, Dom, massive thanks to you. Thank you for taking the time. We'd love to have you back along with Miles as well, and I'm sure we'll sort that out in the next week or two. But yeah, we'll let you go.
Thanks, Tom.
Cheers, lads. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Tom. Take care, mate.
See you later, mate. Good luck.
Bye.
Brilliant to have him on. Great to have Dom on and Miles making his debut. It felt like Miles had been on 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah.
He
Yeah. Settle in.
He seemed very, very comfortable in the environment. And of course, that's what we do on Loaded Mag. And UFC will make all our guests feel very, very comfortable.
We never got him to sing. Next time.
Oh, honestly, Daz, I thought Miles was going to exit the green room when you said that.
You just seen the look of panic.
Yeah, I was just thinking, oh my God, is he going?
But you know what? Someone is going to come on and start singing sometime, and then we'll be sorry.
Daz, I threw that up before, Daz. I don't know whether well, in fact, it brings us back because Pete said he wanted to go back to it. I personally think that that is probably the list of players we expect to go. I think there may be 1 or 2 surprises. Hey, I bet none of us thought that Shelby and Woods would have been going in January, so there will be 1 or 2 surprises. But they would be the ones that would be on my list.
I started actually putting together the prep work for Squad Game 3. The Price is Right. Whether we go for it might be a bit too early to go for it in the international break, but we did that before, and remember Miggy turned things around, so it might be a kick up the backside to someone else.
We need to give it a side name. It's got to be like Squad Game 3. Back with a Vengeance, or something like a Die Hard related.
No, it's the Price is Right, because we're going to put our values against each of the players that we want to keep and sell. What's our market value on them? Ours, not world transfer value, our value.
David Cook just put in the chat, Jamal Lewis missing from that list. Potential.
I don't know. I don't know what maybe it's just false hope. I don't know. I mean, it's a great shout, Jamal Lewis, but I did think of him. But I don't know. I always want him to do well. I still think there's a player there. Whether or not we'll see that player, I don't know. Here's one for the chat, and one for you boys. Given the choice, would you rather keep Target as the left back understudy or Lewis?
Target.
Looking at Sealam.
Because if Eddie Howe could get something out of him, I think he would have got it by now.
Do you think so?
I honestly,
do you think he's done now?
I can't remember what game it was, lads, but there was one.
Chef Wed?
Might have been that there was one game where I think it was it was Bournemouth, because Byrne had an absolute shocker, and he should have been dragged during that game. And then it cut to Eddie Howe, and you could see Lewis in the background. You're thinking, why has he not brought him on when Burns having a shocker? And that tells you everything you need to know. Like, for me, Burn was getting rinsed left, right, and centre on that left-hand side against Bournemouth. You bring him off, you save him from making a mistake, and he nearly cost us the game potentially with that little bit of play towards the end of the game. And you've got Lewis on the bench, and Lewis must be thinking the same, but Eddie Howe must be thinking the same. He clearly doesn't trust him to come on the pitch and do a job for Newcastle in that pressure situation. Now you got to think to yourself, that pressure's only going to go up a notch or 2 next season. So if you can't trust him now, when are you going to be able to trust him? So therefore, he just needs to be either loaned out for the season to build confidence. But I think personally, he'll just be sold on. I think, on top of the sponsorships and all the rest of it, I think we're going to look to recoup as much money as possible for players that we've got to be able to add to the transfer kitty. And I would have Target as a backup, 100%. And you know what? I think, I'm not sure if it was, I can't remember if it was Dom or Miles. I think it was Dom that mentioned about Byrne being a backup and a squad player moving forward. I think Target becomes a third choice next season. I do. I think with a brand new left back coming in, Byrne can come in and play some games. Target can come in and play some games. Target almost becomes the Jamal Lewis, effectively, and you get a first class left back that comes in and does a job. But
I think we're bringing in a new left back as well.
But equally, I throw the question out to you, and Dom answered the question on the back of it. In order to have a squad ready for European football, how many players do you think we need to bring in?
Regardless of what European football we get, as many as we can get, Pete, is really the answer. As many that's possible. Our budget will allow, and that includes like development players as well. So I think we're all hoping, and we are expecting it now at this stage that this summer is going to be massive in the transfer window, and we're even predicting it for a fully loaded transfer show as well. It should be rapid fire, hopefully. So there's no number.
Oh no! Are you a 00 stato here?
Yeah, I'm sitting on the fence.
There is no number.
Yeah, we're in loaded extra territory now. When the guests move off, we just ramble. You know how it goes.
Love it. What about you, Chris?
I was just trying to work it out in my head. So we need another striker. We need a winger, where someone who can play on either side. We need 2 central midfielders. We need one in the first place, and we need one to replace Shelby. We need a new left back. And I would say either a right back or centre back. So I would say either 6 or possibly 7 if we're being greedy. 6 or possibly 7. But what I will say as well, obviously those players need to be able to compete in the first team. Some of them will be first team starters. Some of them will be players who are considerably better than the players who aren't getting in the first team at the minute. If we get Champions League, you could argue, and this is controversial, you could argue that maybe all 6 or 7 have to be first team ready, because I think we need it. If we're playing conference or Europa League, I'd say you could get away with, say, 3 or 4 first team and then 2 or 3 who you'll develop. But I think if you get Champions League, you've got to go all in, and you've got to say, right, we need players who, could step into the first team and there'd be no grumblings, there'd be no doubts, there'd be no worries. Players like your Brunos, like your Botmans, players who just come in and they're going to do a job. It's a lot of money, but that's what Champions League football brings, isn't it?
I think PDK has the right idea. Do a Chelsea, bring in about 30.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be easier, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Costs a lot of money though, and that's going to be the key. I think you're right. You want all your players that are coming in that are going to be first team ready. But the reality is that if you're buying first team ready players, they're going to cost a lot of money unless you're getting 1 or 2 that are on freeze. I'm not saying we're going to sign in these players, but like, for example, I'm throwing a name out here that we've not even discussed, but a Wilfried Zaha, for example. You get him on a free in the summer. I know it's a no. I know that. I know there's loads of people in the chat. I'm just saying, for example, if you're going to try and save money in terms of spending on transfer fees, he's a player that you could come in and potentially be first team ready.
Yeah.
Equally, we've already talked about these players, your Madisons, your Diabes, your players like that. If there's no ban on top of his head, and Ivan Toney could potentially come in and be first team ready. Could you bring him in and be a central striker, play Zach on the left? You got KK that Dunham was just put in the chat. Daz will be very happy to hear that, but that would be the majority of our budget.
But that would be everything. Yeah.
Would you take that risk? We've been linked with so many different players. It depends. There's a name that myself that we've talked about on our chat that's not necessarily first team ready, but could be a squad player in Philip Billing at Bournemouth. Myself and Richie would talk about it over the weekend and before. And he's a player that you could bring in, not necessarily start, but could come in and do a job. For me, I think he's better than what we've currently got in terms of Sean Longstaff. I like Sean Longstaff. He's done a good job for us this season, but Philip Billing could come in and do a job that's better than him and play European football. And that's just an example. I'm not saying we're going to sign these players, but do you go for someone a little bit cheaper that would be happy to play a squad role, come in and do a job for the team that's pushing for top 4, or do you go in and spend a huge sum of money, 250, 300 million on what Chris has mentioned, 6, 7 players that are first team ready and completely revamp your team? I don't know. It's a question that's out there.
Do you know what? It's interesting, Pete. I'm just going to throw some names at you there because I've just searched it online. I mean, a lot of these players, we're not saying that these are players that we should go for, but the players who would come in, like you've said, Pete, Zaha's on the list, who would come in and they could play in the first team. And I suppose it's about a transition as well, isn't it? You can bring in players who you think for the next 18 months, 2 years, these are going to do a job for us, and then we need to upgrade. But when we've got the money to be able to do that, as you rightly say, Pete, you can't go out and spend 50 million on 10 players. It just won't work. You can't do it. But there'll be some players who you can get on a free and you think, you know what? Yes, he's 31. Yes, he's probably coming towards the end of his career, but he can do a job for us. He can fill a gap. So, yeah, we've mentioned a couple of these before. You've got Soyuncu at Leicester. You've got Nelson Semedo at Wolves, which is a bit of a surprise. You've got Lucas Moura, you've got Yerry Mina, you've got Traore, you've got Lingard, you've got Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, you've got Kufal, you've got Willian, you've got Tuanzebe, his contract's finally ended at Man United. It feels like that's been going on forever. You've got Ceballos at Real Madrid. You've got David Silva. You've got Albiol at Villarreal. You've got Skriniar, who I think he's going to PSG, but he's still on the list anyway. You've got Belotti, De Vrij. You've got Chris Smalling. You've got Alexandro, Dzeko, Giroud. You've got Ibrahimovic. German League, you've got Marcus Thuram. You've got Ndika. You've got Conrad Laimer, who's at Leipzig. He was very highly rated not that long ago.
Good player, very good.
Marco Reus, Matt Hummels, Aouar. You've got Barkley, Ramos, Alexis Sanchez, Aaron Ramsey. Massive list of players.
I don't know if you mentioned even Marco Asensio. Apparently,
I've seen his name.
Deal with Barcelona. I can't believe he's leaving Real Madrid to go to Barcelona on a free. But equally, we were linked with him in the summer about him coming to Newcastle. He'd be an ideal signing for Newcastle. I know it's Barcelona. Maybe I'm being a bit biased here, but really? Couldn't be part of the project. You're actually going to play regular football. I don't know.
I have a question for Chris. I'm kind of slightly diverging away from potential free transfers, but it's a good one. And Chris, there's a reason why I'm directing this at you. It comes from Rich Jobling. That Nori fella looked like a headless chicken when he came on. Absolutely all over the place. Not a good addition for me.
Do you know what, Daz? I actually replied to Rich on that one earlier. Yeah, I agree. I don't think he looks very good. I suppose the thing for him, the thing that I noticed anyway when he came on, he's got those raw talents. Like you could see that burst of pace, and he looks comfortable on the ball. I agree with Rich. I don't think he did himself any favours at all, and that is probably why he doesn't start week in week out for Wolves at the moment. Because if he's playing like that, where he's so erratic and so all over the place, but who would be the best coach to kind of get the best out of him?
Yeah.
If you've got those raw skills, that raw potential, you wouldn't go far wrong than being managed by Eddie Howe. I don't think. Might get a good price from him as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to add just before Daz, you get to the next question. Yeah. Tom has made a really good point, and I forgot about it. I forgot about it. I've just started. Is that there is a lot of talk that because Marco Asensio is going to Barcelona, Rafinha is going to be sold in the summer. Would we take it? He's already said, Tom, yes, we would sign him. How good would he be as a potential Miggy upgrade on that right-hand side?
He'd be class. And actually, our own Richie, he was the first player he mentioned that is at the start of the takeover that we should go for. So.
In his big book of signings.
He still has it. He still has it wrote down. But quality signing. Love that. Look, Lisa, there's an awful lot of chatter here about Wilson's wife. We don't know anything about this. This is not a gossip channel. We know nothing about that topic.
Did you see Scotty's comment just after it?
No.
Oh, it was brilliant. Scotty was like, what was it? Where's just flash that up again, Daz, and then it will come up on the comments. It made me laugh. I've applied back to Scotty. Yeah, when I see the blue, it wasn't, but here we go. And then Scotty said,
Wasn't beam me up.
"Oh, there, that." Oh.
There you go. But yeah, we know nothing about that, at least, I'm afraid. Hopefully all good. Mark Todd, just want to give you a shout. Mark, we talked about Whispers there as well. Yeah, the Jamaican lad. He's gone to Chelsea. Basically, he was in trial with us. Chelsea made an offer as well, like they do. They put an offer in for everybody. They probably put one in for Rafinha as well if we were looking to buy him. And he's gone to Chelsea. So bye, Whispers. And if it all ends in tears, we'll call you Whimpers. But he's gone. Duncan Richards. Another question, lads. Yeah, this was one for you, Pete. Would you let Bruno go if Real if it meant we get Matters and Diaby? It's a no from me.
No, I wouldn't. I think Bruno's key to what we need to do. We don't need to be selling our best players to other teams. And look, as much as I love Matters and Diaby, there are other players out there that we could sign that would be just as good. I'm looking at those players. I'm looking at James Maddison because regardless of what's happening with Leicester City at the moment, I'm watching a lot of Leicester's games, not because I care about Leicester, I don't. I'm watching James Maddison and the way he plays. And they are not playing to his strengths right now. They're really not. And you can tell how frustrated he's getting. They are in free fall at the moment. And it's not down to him. He's trying, he's doing everything he can. I think he would be ideal for our team and the way we're playing. However, if it meant that Bruno left, I wouldn't take it. I would keep Bruno all day long because I think he is so important. He's so critical to the way in which we play football. I think we have a fear factor now with Bruno in the team. I think teams fear Bruno when they come and play up against Newcastle. And equally, as much as I'd love Maddison, I think we could also go out and get somebody else that could come in and do just as good a job. Someone in Europe, for example, that we could come and bring in and would complement the team just as well. I think it helps the fact that Maddison's got a year left on his contract. The financials came out today for Leicester. They have only just met FFP. It is very, very clear that they need to sell players. Tielemans going, various other players will leave in the summer, including Maddison. I'm sure of it, and that's why it's such an enticing deal for us, an appealing deal, but not for Maddison. Same with Diaby. There's other players out there that we've already talked about. Rafinha is one of them that we could go and get instead of Diaby, and be equally as effective, if not better. So that's just me.
You'd probably let him go, Chris, would you? You're not a big fan.
I was just about to say, I think, to follow on from what Pete just said, I think if we let Bruno go, we'd struggle to get Maddison and Diaby. Because I think they'd look and go, well, if you're selling your best player, which Bruno is, do I want to be part of that? Probably not. Sends out the wrong message.
Yeah, must give a shout out to Stephen Donaghy as well. Isaac is going to be a superstar. You're not wrong, Stephen, and thanks for the donation to the channel.
Thank you, mate.
Stephen.
He already is a superstar.
He already is. Yeah, that's right. Right, there's about 3 or 4 questions all around Callum Wilson. Tom asked, do you think we need to replace Callum Wilson in the summer? Scotty asked, do we need to sell Wilson in the summer? Dan asked, will Isaac scoring boost Wilson or give his confidence more of a knock? So Wilson in general, what are you doing with them in the summer, lads?
Want to go, Pete, or me?
Chris, go for it, son.
I want to keep Wilson. I think give him another season. But I do think that Wilson's role which Pete's mentioned numerous times, I think we've all spoke about it. I think Wilson's role looks a lot different next season. It's whether or not Wilson would be happy potentially being second, possibly third choice striker, which is what he could end up being. It's whether or not he'd be happy doing that, happy being part of the squad, or whether he wants that number 9 shirt and he wants to be playing week in, week out. And if he has that honest conversation with Eddie Howe, I don't think Eddie Howe will give him any assurances, which I believe he did at the start of this season. And I don't think he'll do the same in the summer.
Pete, we're going to ask you this question. You're not going to wriggle your way out of it. Wilson.
Just pop the question up again.
No, I can't find it now.
I wasn't going to answer it, so I didn't think about it because Chris answered it. I thought you'd move on.
No. I knew that. Was the game plan. No, it's
the question. I didn't want to answer the question.
The question is, what would you do, Pete, when it comes to the summer? Would you sell Wilson or would you keep him?
Is it what I would do or what I think will happen?
Pete, look into his eyes and tell him what are you going to do. Look deep into those eyes and tell him what are you going to do to him in the summer.
Give us a double prong answer, Pete.
Okay. Look, you know how much I love Callum Wilson. Honestly, I was so made up when he signed for the club because I just love the way he plays football. I really do. However, I have noticed over the last 5-6 weeks, he looks a half a yard short. He doesn't play the same way. He's almost in the Alan Shearer transition of being a back-to-goal striker rather than running the channels. We saw that with Isak. What Isak was doing on Sunday is what Callum Wilson did for us when he first signed for the club. And for me, the way he's going right now, there's a genuine argument of potentially cashing in for him in the summer. I don't believe Callum Wilson is a bench striker. He's not a player that you bring off the bench to do a job for the club. And so for that reason, I would probably sell him. And it's hard for me to say that because I love him and I don't really want him to leave the club.
And what do you think the club will do?
I think the club, I don't think the club will have a choice. I think if we get European football, he'll stay. I think he will do everything he can to stay. And I've mentioned it before. I said it to you boys before. I said it to the Jordan Down South boys before. He has never played European football before. Before he retires, he will want to play European football. He will take a season of sitting on the bench in Premier League matches to ensure that here and there he plays European football, to say that he's got it on his tick list. Just like he wanted the tick list of the World Cup, which he made, he will want that on his tick list. Now, whatever European football he gets, he'll take. Because let's face it, with all due respect, after Newcastle, it's probably downward spiral. Because of his age, because of his injuries. I don't think any other team in and around us would probably trust Callum Wilson. And that's just my genuine feel. And I'm saying that through gritted teeth because I love him as a striker. I love what he's done. I love his personality. I love everything about what he does. And he's brought so much positivity to Newcastle United as our number 9. But I have to, in my mind, think about Newcastle moving forward. And genuinely, I don't see him as a bench striker. For me, Isak starts all day. Isak starts all day for me next season. He is the main striker. And for me, even now, he's the main striker. And he's going to have to ride that out for the rest of the season. But it's whether he's going to want to do that next season. If we get European football, he will. And he'll stay. He'll probably get offers in the summer. He'll turn them down. He will want to play European football. He won't do what Shelby's done. But I think if there's a big enough offer, if there's an offer around 20 million plus, where we get our money back for what we signed him for, I think Newcastle will turn around and say, we're willing to accept the deal. What do you want to do? And I do think that Eddie Howe will give him the choice. I don't think it will be the case of, right, you have to go, like a bit like Chris Wood. I don't think it'll be a Chris Wood situation. I think they'll go, we've got this deal. We're going to accept it because it's a great offer. what do you want to do? And I think they'll give him the option. But genuinely, after next season, I don't see Callum Wilson at the club. I really don't. I don't see it. I don't see him going into 33 years old playing for Newcastle United. I really don't. And I genuinely thought that would be the case at the beginning of the season. But same old injury problems, can't stay fit. Looks like he's lost a yard of pace. I don't want it to be a situation where the fans are begging for him to go. I'd rather him go with a nice round of applause, a clap, and an appreciation of what he's done for the club. I'd rather him go that way than Callum Wilson is always injured, get him out of the club. I don't want it to be that. I really don't want it to be that. I would hate that for him because I don't think he deserves it. But if he continues to stay and see out his welcome, I think it will get that way. And I don't want it to be. So it's a bit long answer, but I apologise for that. But
I don't want to potentially ruin squad game 3, Daz, but Nathan 8 asks a question here, and he says, where does Wilson go, and is he bringing in 10 million? Now, what I wanted to ask you both is, let's say for argument's sake he goes. Let's keep him in England. Name the club you think, or the type of club you think he'd join, and name the price that you'd let him go for.
Here, let's bring up the table for that as well. He's not going. He's not going anywhere. He's not going here. Fulham, competing with Mitro. Brentford are going to need another striker if Tony's going to be missing.
I was just about to say that, Daz. That's a great shout. That he'd be a great signing for Brentford if they let Tony go.
Well, for me, there's an easy choice. I mean, look, you've got your London clubs. There's two teams that stick out for me. One is Fulham as an alternative to Mitro, and the second one for me is Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace don't score goals, and he would be a perfect choice for them. Would I there just put Bournemouth? I don't think they're out of the race of staying in the league, but I think there's a higher chance of them getting relegated. I think if they go into the Championship, I don't think he goes. He goes back to Bournemouth. If they stay in the league, maybe, but I think there'll be teams higher up that will probably want him. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, he's odds on so to go end up in that far like everyone else. But yeah, look, I don't know who's going to break this to Russ that because of what Pete said there. Now cancel all orders. Cancel all orders.
I love the guy. I'm honestly, that was so hard for me to say.
I know it was. Right.
How much do you reckon then, Daz?
For Wilson, yeah, he's coming near 32. I think you get 15 million from him. Like we paid 20 million from him, but I think I think he's proved it as well that he's, if he goes through the whole season staying fit, I think he get like Forest to pay 15 million for him, no problem.
We got 15 million for Wood though. Surely he's better than Wood. He's better than Wood.
We bought him for 20. Can you really make him turn a profit on him? I don't think so.
I think we could. I do. I think we could. With Chris, the new Chelsea, turn a profit on players.
I was thinking along your lines, Daz. I was thinking maybe 15 million. And the other club I was going to throw out as a suggestion was maybe he'd fancy move my ways to Merseyside, maybe Everton.
Oh.
And the reason I say that, not that I'm saying he should go there, but what I'm saying is he would go there because, let's be honest, I think Calvert-Lewin will be out the door soon, and they need a number 9 striker. The only problem, I suppose, with Fulham is Mitro because they play with the one striker. Palace is a great shout, Pete. Palace is a great shout. But I get the impression with Wilson, he strikes me as somebody who's quite a proud person and somebody who kind of wants that, oh, we need you. Like he wants to be the main man. And that's my only thinking about maybe he could go to a club where, you know, he knows that he's the main man, he's the main guy. And at Everton, that's exactly what he would be. He would be the main guy. He would be the one who scores the goals. That was my only reason why I thought maybe Everton.
Toon fan 4444 just said Everton.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a cruel move. It'd be a cruel move. It was.
For Wilson, it would be a cruel move, 100%. But I think the original comment that Daz put out there was about his wife moving back down south. So could it be that he needs to move south?
Maybe he needs to go down. Yeah, maybe.
That was why I said Fulham and Palace, because I just thought
maybe
he might need to move south. Now, could it be if Southampton stay in the league, they could be an option because
would West Ham take him, Pete?
West Ham will take him. They wanted him. Yeah. They wanted him beforehand. Them and Villa wanted him the same time as us. And we know, and I've said it to Lawless many a times, that they copy our transfer window.
I don't think he goes though, lads. I really don't, because I know he was into, obviously from the pictures, well, he's into Rust, and he's getting a bit of work done. So I don't think he's moving. I think he's staying. There you go. So yeah, thanks for that, Pete. But he's staying. He's not going anywhere.
I'll take it.
Well, I wanted to get to this one from John Elliott. Thanks a million for the donation, John. And it's a great question because the quality of the questions has been the best night ever for the quality of the questions. I have to say that. Do you guys think Kraft will be given a chance, or do we cash in? And if you think back, Kraft under Bruce, anytime you saw him in the team sheet, you went no. But Kraft under Eddie Howe was class, and there was a question mark at one stage as well. Kraft or Trippier, there was a kind of a question mark, because he was doing really well, and he could also play centre back as well as an option. I think he stays for a while because the Swedish connection with Isak as well, maybe. What would you do? If once he comes back the way he was, he's an option for us.
Haaland scored 4 in the Champions League, by the way.
Was Emil Kraft playing there? Answer the goddamn question.
Sorry, that's what I was laughing at. I'll answer that quick. I do believe we'll cash in on Kraft, and I don't think he'll get a chance. And the reason being is because I think we'll have more than enough with Ashby and Trippier.
Yeah, fair enough.
I genuinely think that us signing Ashby is almost as pushing Manquillo and Kraft out the door. That's my opinion. I actually think we could potentially sign another right back, not necessarily this summer, maybe in the January transfer window 2024. But I think, for me, that there's a genuine chance that we're moving on from the likes of Kraft and Manquillo. I do.
Do you know what time it is, Chris? Hand those headphones over.
I have a feeling I know what time it is.
I know what time it is.
Welcome summer.
You've got your own song now. It's amazing. I don't even have my own song. You've got your own song.
Brilliant.
What?
You have a show.
Well, I have a show, yeah.
That's true.
We'll give summer a show. There we go.
Great time you on. We need some strobe lighting. We need some strobe lighting.
We do, yeah.
When it comes on, it just goes bad.
Is that possible? Yeah, we could have it in one of our houses. Yeah, but that's about it. I think we could invest in that. Good question here from Michael Palmer. Does anyone know if West Ham win the Conference League, does that take a European qualifying spot away from the league placing as West Ham would take it? That's a good question. They go into the Europa Cup then, I suppose, wouldn't they?
That's a great question. I don't actually know the answer to that.
No, I'm not sure.
I genuinely don't know the answer to that. And
if anyone knows, get it in the chat.
Yeah, that might throw some worry around
the
Newcastle social media. So, Michael, you might have stumbled on something that could cause mass panic. But yeah, it's a genuine question. Or does it add another one? Does it add to the list? So could it be that we have, because I think if they win the Europa Conference, they go into the Europa League. Does it add three? Does it add three teams to the Europa League and then still one for the conference? So the positions in the league stay the same, but we just added another English team to it. I don't know. But PDK, I don't think you're wrong in what you're saying. The likelihood of them winning, I think they've got Villarreal, they've got Lazio, who are losing it at the moment in the first leg tie. I think Fiorentina, I would feel any three of those teams are confident in beating West Ham.
Haaland scored 5.
Well,
he's a beast.
Wow.
He's a machine. He's an absolute machine. For people saying that he has made Man City worse, like, it's just crazy. 6-0. You know what makes me laugh about this is that Pep Guardiola bigged Leipzig up yesterday as being this amazing team, and like it's almost like he's done it to set them up for this massive fall because he just knew that Man City were going to smash them to pieces. Leipzig are a flipping good team.
How many on average? How, at the end of the Champions League, like, doesn't the top scorer normally have like 8 or something?
Yeah.
Well, it was the Messi and Ronaldo's that kind of changed the complexion of the Champions League, because like Messi and Ronaldo's were getting into the 14, 15, 16s. I think there might be one season Ronaldo got 17 in a season. Like that, but these are like Messi and Ronaldo were aliens in the Champions League.
Yeah.
But I don't actually know what Haaland's on, but he could be on potentially if they go the distance to kind of equal or even beat their records.
Yeah.
The fact that he's got 5 in one night, that puts him right in the conversation. He's clearly, I don't even know the list, but he's clearly top of that list. He has.
There's still half an hour to go.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Crazy. Lads, maybe one last question, unless another one pops up. But yeah, I wanted to maybe go for this one. So from Mark Todd about, do you think the club will be more aggressive in the transfer market? Sign the players as soon as possible so they can get to train straight away. It's talked about every year, but never seems to happen. I know Eddie Howe will want them in from first day pre-season, but will it happen? Has Dan Ashworth does he have a master plan all ready to go? And okay, there'll be Toon and Froen with a lot of clubs, but the main bulk of it, do you think he has it ready to go?
We tried to do that at the beginning of this summer. We tried, we got Target in early, we got Pope in early. We tried to get Botman in early, and to be fair, we got him in, if I'm right, I think at the end of June, early July. So just as pre-season was kicking back in, we managed to get him in, but we tried to get him in early. The fact that we did that with those 3 players, I genuinely believe that we will do it again. And I think I mentioned it on a show a number of weeks ago. We have to. James Madison's case in point. Like if Eddie Howe wants someone like him, he's going to get interest from a lot of different clubs in the summer that are going to have summer budgets available that they didn't have in January or the back end of the summer when we initially put our interest in him because they'd already spent money. For us, we need to act on players like that to get them in early, to go, you know what, a week before the end of the season or a week after the season's finished, here's the money. We want him. Let's get it done now. Let's wrap that up. Let's wrap that deal up now. We're going to need to do that with 2 or 3 players. I genuinely believe we're going to need to do that with someone. And this is an example, Moussa Diaby. Moussa Diaby is going to be wanted by a number of clubs because of the individuality of his performances this season. Leverkusen haven't been great, but he's had some really good performances this season. And I think he's going to attract some interest. So if we're still interested in someone like Diaby, I think we're going to need to act fast. So for me, I agree. I think we need to really, really kick on and get players in early. Some of those players that are going to be highly attracting interest from 6, 7, 8 clubs. We need to get those boys in early and get them settled and in before pre-season. Because if we're going into a European season, we need to be ready. We need to be ready to go. So, yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
Cool. Chris, before I go to you to ask the same question about do you think we should we will bring in players early? Just want to remind people, make sure you hit that like button on your way out, or yeah, there it is. There's the prompt. There's about 194 in the chat there a second ago. And if you're new and you would like to get in the chat and chat away to everyone else, hit that subscribe button as well, and the chat will open up for you to get your comments in as well. But thoughts there, Chris? What would you do, or what do you think will happen?
I'd just try and strike as quickly as possible. I hope that will happen. I hope that we move early. Obviously, you know, I don't expect us to move early for like 5, 6, 7, 8 players. I don't think, you know, I don't think the window will open and it'll be like, hey, we've got all these new players. But certainly for our main targets, I would want to move nice and quick. So hopefully we get it done as early as possible. I'd like to see in the first couple of weeks at least 1 or 2 come in. And then maybe, you know, maybe we'll have to wait a bit longer for others. But yeah, I hope we strike soon, because that was the only frustration for me about the January window. Like, I wanted us to come out the traps really quick, and we didn't. But in the summer, hopefully we can get that right. I mean, we've had a hell of a long time, haven't we, to, you know, prepare, work out who we want, who we're looking at, who we're after. So there's no reason why we can't. And yeah, let's hope some deals have been wrapped up already.
Like that. Strike first, no mercy. Pete will get that. But anyway, let's go to a shout out to. I'm going to give a shout out to the sponsors. If you think of anything else, lads, we want to wrap up because we are back again tomorrow. But just a shout out to the radiatorshed.com as we put Chris in jail. And you would have seen Russ there tonight. There he is. There's Russ. I haven't been in the chat. He must be busy. But maybe there's loads of more Newcastle players coming to him now. Callum Wilson putting business his way, hopefully. But yeah. If you need radiators, Russ is the man to call. He will sort you out on all your heating needs. And if you need them installed, the InstallWorks will sort that out as well. Also, a shout out to H2O Bathroom Design Co., the Northeast's largest supplier of Velcro and Botch bathroomware. Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, ran by the family. Get down to the showroom on 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate, Gateshead. We say the same thing every show. It's like we have a wrote down. But yeah, there some of the bathrooms. If you're interested in bathrooms, or you know someone that's upgrading their house or their bathrooms, you know where to go. H2O Bathroom Design Co. But that's a shout out to the sponsors. I want to tell you what's happening. Hopefully tomorrow, we will be back with Mr. Jordan Cronin for another talk of the Toon. So we want more questions tomorrow. Make Jordan work for it. Yeah. So we'll welcome back Jordan to the show. We haven't seen him for a while, so it'll be great to catch up with Jordan tomorrow. And 7:30 for that one. And then on Thursday, we have away days. Take it away, Pete.
Looking forward to it. And obviously, it's Mr. Dawes' channel, Ben Dawes' channel that are coming on. But it's Mr. Daw is not available due to work. So we have Dave representing the channel now. If anyone's watched The 12th Man, you'll know who Dave is, and he is an outstanding guest. Really, really genuinely nice guy. Great knowledge on all football, not just Nottingham Forest or Newcastle. And he's going to be a great discussion. Really, really nice guy. He's really looking forward to coming onto the channel. Really appreciative of being asked to come on. So he'll be back. He'll be back on the channel talking all things Forest. And we'll get the lowdown at that point, because both press conferences will have taken place. We'll know what the situation is with both clubs, and we can have a really good discussion on how it's going to work for the Friday night fixture. So definitely tune in. It's going to be an absolute cracker. And like I say, I know for a fact, if you've never watched Dave before, you've never listened to him speak about Forest or Newcastle, you're guaranteed to love him by the end of the show, because he's such a genuinely nice man. Really looking forward to having this chat.
looking forward to that one. Of course, then we have the match, and as well as Paddy's Day, we have the match on Friday, and then on Saturday evening before Mother's Day, we have our review show, our reaction show. So catch that over the weekend. That was it from the sponsors and upcoming shows. Any last little thing we want to touch on, lads, before we close down the show for tonight?
No, not for me. No, all good. All good. Really, really good show. A lot of people saying in the chat really enjoyed the show. I've really enjoyed the show tonight. Great to have Miles on. Great to have Dom on with their discussions. But even after that period, his boys having a chat about some of the other questions put in the chat. Really, really enjoyable chat, and great to be back.
PDK lowering the tone. But yeah. On that note, we'll say good night. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks to Miles and Dom for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Guess it's one thing left to say. How did you like that?